The following is a non-profit horror story narration. The story, narrated with full permission and cooperation, is written and owned by the author, who is credited in the subject line and in the description down below, along with a link to the original story. This video may contain some material such as violence, creepiness, jump scares, adult language, and suggested content which may not be suitable for some viewers. Please support the official release, and viewer discretion is advised.
Okay, just to clarify. It was Friday night when John told me the girl had 3 days. That night I made a plan. I figured it had a 50% chance of succeeding. It was the only way to save the girl, though. The only way I could think of, though. The rest of the time I spent trying to get on John's good side. After all, he must have something planned. Why else would he need so much money? After all, he's the type of man to steal what he wants. Saturday, he didn't budge. In fact, half the time we were awake, he was gone. On Sunday, though, he started to open up. A lot. I decided to push my luck that day and go ahead and ask him what the money was for. Hey John, I've been meaning to ask you. What's all the money for? I asked him. Well, actually, I have something I want to show you, John said, with the mood of the conversation changing. He led me out of the warehouse, and we walked through the forest for some time. To be honest, we had walked so far away from the warehouse, I was getting afraid that he was going to kill me. Although, after about a mile, we reached a small wooden shack. He opened the creaky door and ushered for me to walk in. As I did, I saw Joseph and Brock in the room around the table. The table had a miniature town set up on it. Both Joseph and Brock looked at me with a deadly stare. I made it appear as if I was ignoring them, but in all actuality, I was watching them just as intensely. John entered the shack and closed the door behind him. This is what we've been preparing for. The ultimate operation, John said as he walked towards the table. What is it exactly? I asked. This is the end game. It is what we've all been striving for ever since we started killing a year ago, Joseph said as he watched me intensely. We're gonna kill all the people in this neighborhood in one night, John said with a gleeful smile. There were more people in this neighborhood than there were in Joseph and Jacob's cult. He paused for a moment, fixing one of the houses. Then resuming, this is what all the money is for. Bribing. We bribed someone to let us in through the gates. And we've bribed a lot of officials to make this go smoothly. This is the most horrific domestic killings in all history, he said with an evil smirk. I hid my true feelings and put on an impressed face. On the inside, though, I knew I should stop this. And we'll use the money we get from the girl's parents to flee to Canada. There, we'll disappear for a while and lay low, Joseph said, adding to John. Yes, Yes, you truly are a genius, Joseph, said John as he looked at the town with a hungry look in his eye. Then he turned to me. What about you? What are you going to do? He asked. I don't need to lay low. I need to kill someone. And I need to do it alone, I said, bluffing through my teeth. John laughed with glee, as if immensely pleased. You impress me, Brian. I thought you might have trouble jumping to killing humans. But it seems I was wrong, John said happily. When does this happen? I asked, changing my personality to more of a suiting for a cold-blooded killer. February 9th, Brock said boldly, still intensely staring at me. Consider me completely in, I replied. Good, John said with a pleased look on his face. They went on talking about how they were going to kill people and how they would take pictures and videos, then later send them to news stations to prove it was them. Little did they know that they had just revealed their entire plan to an outsider. I couldn't stop them, but with this information, the police could. I don't remember much after that. I was too focused on making sure everything was set. Sunday passed like a blur, and Monday was here before I knew it. Tonight, I had to find a way to get that girl out. The rest was easy. I knew how to hotwire a car, and I could do it fast. My only worry is that somehow one of them would see through my facade. Monday afternoon came, and Brock and John were gone somewhere, and they took Joseph with them too. Eric said he needed to go somewhere, but not before handing me a pocket knife. He said it was in case Jacob tried anything. It seemed out of character for him to do that, but I accepted it. After all, I was worried I wouldn't survive long enough to see that night. For most of the day, Jacob was eyeing me like a piece of meat. After hours and hours of examining each other and watching one another's moves, I decided it wouldn't be that hard to get the drop on him. He might be an experienced killer, but he was too impulsive. I went behind a box, stepping out of his field of vision. Then I watched as he walked towards my general area. I moved from box to box, always keeping an eye on him as he looked for me. Eventually, he turned his back towards me for a few seconds, leaving him completely open. I didn't wait a single second. I silently creeped over to him, and when he was about to turn, I stabbed him in the neck. Unlike normal people, though, he didn't yell in agony. He just smiled. He seemed rather pleased at the fact that I was trying to kill him. He, being the idiot that he is, pulled the pocket knife out of his neck, licking his own blood off of it, and lunged at me. He constantly stabbed at me, completely ignoring his neck wound. The most terrifying part of this situation, though, was the expression on his face. His eyes were wider than any that I have seen before. His smile was wider than any I have seen. I ran away from him, running out of the warehouse and into the woods. He followed me, stumbling constantly, but it didn't seem to slow him down at all. Then I tripped. I fell face forward to the ground, taking only a split second to roll on my back to see Jacob with his demonic smile looking down at me. I'm gonna enjoy eating you, he said with his crazed voice, licking the knife as he did. I scrambled to my feet and just barely got a cut on my side. He seemed to be slowing. He went to stab me as I jumped back, getting nicked on the forearm. His face seemed to be stuck on that one expression, no matter what he did. He went to slash at me with the pocket knife, but tripped halfway. When he did, the knife flung from his hand and landed on the ground equally far away from both of us. I rushed towards it, picking it up to see Jacob getting up and licking his lips. In that moment, something came over me. It was almost like animal instinct. I charged at him, stabbing him in the heart as I tackled him to the ground. As we both fell, he laughed. I recovered from my fall fast and pulled the knife out of him and repeatedly stabbed him in the lungs and heart while he was laughing at me. It was more of a low giggle, but it seemed as if he still felt no pain. After stabbing him 5 times, I finally stopped and looked at his face. He was still alive, laughing at me. Then suddenly, he stopped. His whole body just stopped. His expression, though, it was haunting. He was still wide-eyed, with an evil smile. I felt no remorse for him, not a single shred. I had looked up his record, and the things he did were far worse than a murder. I felt as if I had avenged his victims, though my conscience still told me that I had done something every sane person deems an abomination. I hurried back to the warehouse and found an old shovel in there along with a spare set of clothes lying in the box. They weren't new clothes. They looked like they had belonged to a homeless person, but they were stained with blood. I hurried back to the body and began to dig multiple holes. After digging about 5 or so, I started to fill them back up with dirt. On the 6th one, I placed the corpse in. I continued to dig, though, and I didn't limit it to just that area. After a few hours or so just digging and refilling the empty holes, I headed back to the warehouse. A few hours had passed when John and the others had arrived. Joseph didn't ask where Jacob was. In fact, it seemed as if Jacob missing was a normal thing. One night came through. Joseph seemed to start to get an edge. No one asked me about the new clothes. In fact, they took one look at me. It looked like either they knew where the clothes came from, or they just didn't care. Eric still wasn't back, which meant there was still only one car. I stayed up that night, though, waiting for everyone to go off somewhere. Joseph fell asleep. Brock and John went to the shack, and Eric was still gone. I figured this was my only chance, so I took it. I went up to the loft and opened the door slowly. What I saw was terrible. The girl was blindfolded, wearing a blue dress, seemed to be hungry. At the sound of the door opening, she started to whimper. "I'm here to help," I said in a whisper. "I'm gonna take you home, but I need you to be quiet, or else the bad men will come back." Her first reaction was to sob, but once I had finished my sentence, she tried to contain her sobbing. "Let's get you back to Mommy and Daddy," I said in a soft, soothing voice. Then I heard one of the stairs creak. I raided my pocket knife, ready to kill again if need be. I poked my head out to see no one was there. It must just be due to the wood being old. Then again, it is dark. I looked down again at the stairs to make sure someone wasn't hiding under the cover of darkness. After a few moments, I was satisfied and took the blindfold off the girl. "Let's get you home," I said, with a sad smile on my face. I cut the rope binding her hands and lifted her up and tried to walk down quietly. But it didn't work. The stairs were too old and creaked as I walked down with her extra weight. Every creak I thought this was going to be my last step. Eventually I made it down the stairs though, and went straight out the warehouse into the car. I set the girl down on her feet and went to the driver's side. I tried to open it, but the door was locked. "Damn it," I mumbled underneath my breath as I tried to recall if I saw or heard anyone with the keys when they had walked in earlier. As I did, I recalled hearing a jingling sound from Joseph's pockets. I looked at the girl inside. "Get underneath the car and don't come out or make any noise until you hear the sound of keys jingling. Got it?" I said to her. She hesitated for a moment, but eventually nodded her head in understanding. I went back in the warehouse as she crawled underneath the car. As I entered, I saw Joseph still asleep in his old ruined bed. I crept towards it, trying to make as little sound as possible. Once I was close though, I heard a snap from under my foot. I had stepped on a twig. Joseph rolled in his bed at the sound, but didn't wake up completely. He was laying on his right side now, facing away from me. I waited a moment, and then continued to walk forward, making it right to his bedside. After that, I examined his pockets. There were signs of something being in there. I lightly touched his pockets to see if it would make a light jingle sound. To my delight, I heard the reassuring sound of metal hitting other metal. Now came the hard part, reaching into his pocket and grabbing them. I tried to think of other ways to get it, but I couldn't think of any. Then suddenly, the twig came to my memory. I crept over to it, picked it up, and then crept back over to Joseph. It was just long enough, but not too thick, that I could try and fit it into his pocket. It was a gamble, but I felt more comfortable using the twig than I did my hand. I slowly put the twig in his pocket, trying to find where the ring or any hole in the keychain was. I found one with these. I then began to slowly pull the keychain out of his pocket. It moved a few centimeters towards the exit when Joseph moved around some in his bed. I stopped, waited a few moments, and then pulled it closer towards the exit. This time even slower. After a few minutes of repeating the process, I could see the keychain at the entrance of his pocket. I gently grabbed it and lifted it off of him. After that, I moved as fast and quietly as I could. I made it to the car, went to the driver's side, unlocked the driver's seat, and then, once inside, unlocked the passenger seat. The girl didn't get up though. I opened the door, looked under the car, and found she was still hiding, scared to death. "Get in!" I whispered in an urgent voice. She seemed frightened, but did as I said, getting into the passenger seat. I hot-wired the car and threw the keys out of the window towards the warehouse, put the car in drive, and floored it out of there. As I did, I could see in my rearview mirror of the sight of Joseph rushing out of the warehouse, giving me the same stare Jacob had given me earlier. I chuckled to myself as I thought, must be a family trait. The girl was still quiet and scared while we drove, but as soon as we got further away, I looked at her. You don't have to be quiet anymore. You can cry. Lay it all out. No one can hurt you anymore, I said to her. She did just that and started crying her eyes out. I didn't try to comfort her. After all, I was a stranger to her. We made it to the police station, where police asked us all types of questions. But I'll save that for tomorrow's post. After that, I stayed overnight at the police station and saw the girl reunite with her parents. It was touching even for someone like me. She had been examined and doctors said she was just a little hungry. Nothing serious. Before they left though, she came to me.
Thank you, mister,
she said to me, all hesitant and whatnot. I smiled at her with a slightly sad smile. Take care of yourself, Missy, I said to her.
My name's Angela,
she said with a slight frown as she eyed me. Her parents came over and thanked me. What is your name, sir? They asked. Brian. Brian Hunter, I said with a dim smile.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter,
they said with a smile as they shook my hand and went off. The next morning, as I walked to my apartment, I noticed the windows had been broken. Rather, that day was today. Upon entering, I saw a brick on the floor next to shattered glass. There was a piece of paper taped to the brick. I picked it up and read it out loud. We're coming. There is no backing out.